MotoGP is always changing the way motorcycle racing is done. Aleix Espargaro, a veteran race car driver who had a great 20-year career, quit before the Catalan Grand Prix. There are problems with money and contracts that make the future of the Indian Grand Prix scary. This could mess up MotoGP. The sport is getting ready for a big event in 2027. New rules will make it more practical, and the event will happen before the World Superbike Championship. All of us will have a great future thanks to these advances. They show that MotoGP is dedicated to new ideas, racing, and reaching people all over the world. The news came from Aleix Espargaro on Thursday afternoon before the Catalan Grand Prix in Barcelona. Last year, he won both the Saturday and Sunday races there. He is 34 years old. 2 years ago, Espargaro thought that his Aprilia deal would be his last. This year, his deal ends. At the America's Grand Prix, he told the press that he hadn't decided yet about 2025, but he's now leaving the sport. "I'm happy to say that I'm no longer riding full-time." The Spaniard. "It's been a great 20 years in this paddock, and I'm happy and proud of what we've done with Aprilia. That will never be forgotten. We made history. We've had a great time and become a great group. We're having a great weekend at my best track, where I can go fast. We can still beat the other teams because there are still races left until Valencia." Espargaro's first race in MotoGP was in Indianapolis in 2009 as a replacement for Pramac Ducati. In his first race, he came in 13th and earned points. Before becoming a full-time Pramac player in 2010, he played 4 times and got 4 points. Espargaro placed 9th because he was hurt. When he moved up to Moto2 in 2011, he came 12th, but at his first Grand Prix in Barcelona, he won the top spot. In 2012, he came back to MotoGP on an Aprilia CRT bike with Aspar. He won all but 2 of the CRT events and was the best rider by the end of the season. In 2013, before he joined Forward Racing and rode an open Yamaha, he did the same thing. After getting a lucky starting position at Assen, he beat Cal Crutchlow of Ducati to finish second in Aragon that year. Maverick Vinales, an Aprilia rider, and Jorge Espargaro decided to work together on a Suzuki project in 2015. Espargaro was always in the top 8 with his bike, but he never got as good as Vinales and won the race. With the GSX-RR, he helped him and Joan Mir win the title in 2020. After moving to Aprilia's factory project in 2017, Espargaro made the most of a bike that not many people thought would be good enough for MotoGP for the next 3 seasons. When 2019 got tough for Espargaro, he thought about giving up racing, but he decided to stay with Aprilia until 2020. He came in 3rd at the British Grand Prix in 2021, which was Aprilia's first podium in MotoGP. In 2022, he won his first race and team race in Argentina. Espargaro was in the running for the title all the way through 2022. Even though Aprilia had a bad season, Espargaro won 2 Grand Prix in 2023 and missed out on the championship. Espargaro has also talked about safety problems and pushed for changes in Grand Prix racing. Aleix Espargaro is leaving MotoGP, and the Indian Grand Prix is still unclear, which could cause another change in the sport. The race was supposed to happen in September at the Buddh International Circuit, but its future is uncertain because of disagreements over money and contracts between the event organizers and Dorna Sports. This situation shows how hard it is for MotoGP to keep the global calendar stable. It also shows how quickly a solution is needed to keep the sport's growing popularity in new countries like India. The Indian MotoGP round on September 20th, 21 at Buddh International Circuit could not happen. Motorsport.com said last week that the race might not happen because the organizers broke their deal with Dorna Sports, which owns the marketing rights for MotoGP. Some providers, like Dorna from the first race last year, did not get paid. According to Pushkar Nath Srivastava, the CEO of the Indian promoter, these stories were not true, and the event would happen as planned. The race is set up. For every subject, there are rumors. The man said, all contractual obligations will be updated in June. The problems should be fixed after the Indian polls in early June. Carmelo Ezpeleta, CEO of Dorna Sports, talked about the issue at a Catalan Grand Prix presentation. He said it was important to make a choice quickly. India should be taken into account. We can't wait much longer, no more than next week or the week after that, Ezpeleta said. Late payments might have something to do with how the money was handled at last year's race, not this year's. If the Indian Grand Prix is scrapped, Dorna is thinking about moving the Kazakhstan Grand Prix. Because it rained a lot, the Kazakhstan round had to be moved from the middle of June. Dorna is thinking about moving this event to September, but only if MotoGP can run on the Sokol track. We need to figure out where to move Kazakhstan. In the next few days, Ezpeleta said, referring to current talks, we will know something. A record 22 MotoGP races were planned for 2024, but things that weren't planned for changed the schedule. The Argentine Grand Prix was the first race that had to be cancelled because the new president cut the budget for the government. The Kazakhstan round was pushed back, which made the schedule less full. If the Indian round is cancelled, there will still be 20 games to play. The Kazakh round was moved from June to July, which put 3 weeks between the Dutch TT at Assen and the Italian Grand Prix at Mugello. This got in the way of Dorna's plans. Logistics, budgets, and politics often cause problems for global sports events like Dorna's MotoGP schedule. The Indian Grand Prix option is very important because MotoGP is becoming more and more famous among motorsport fans in India. MotoGP became more known around the world after last year's race at the Buddh International Circuit. The event was very important to Dorna's plan to get into the Indian market and make the most of its huge potential. Everyone needs to act quickly to fix the problems with the contracts that could stop these efforts. The fact that the Kazakhstan Grand Prix might have to be moved shows how flexible sports management needs to be. Even though there are problems with flooding, the Sokol track is important for MotoGP's growth in Central Asia. She needs to get this track ready for a race later this year. The MotoGP schedule is often changed by natural disasters and changes in politics, which shows how hard it is to run a global sports event. Fans and people with a stake in MotoGP are closely watching news sources to find a solution that keeps the season's character and excitement. MotoGP will be shaped by the next few weeks. What Dorna does will have an effect on the sport's growth and the number of fans it has now and in the future. As the sport struggles, it will be important for leaders to show how strong and flexible they are. This will keep MotoGP at the top of the world list. MotoGP is having a hard time with the Indian Grand Prix's unclear schedule. At the same time, the sport is getting ready for a big change when new rules come into effect in 2027. The goal of these changes is to make things more sustainable and cost-effective, which could change how the race works. Concerns have been raised about how these changes to the rules will affect the speed gap between MotoGP and the World Superbike Championship, WSBK. One of the main goals of the governing groups is to make sure that MotoGP stays the best class of motorcycle racing while also encouraging competition and technological progress. MotoGP announced changes to the rules for 2027 earlier this month. As motors go from 1000cc to 850cc, bikes will be less protected. The goal of this change is to make the track show better, the road technology better, and the game cheaper and better for the environment. Some people are worried that this change will make MotoGP bikes slower than World Superbike (WSBK) bikes that are made in factories. Jorge Villegas, head of FIM, said that the WSBK would have new rules to control speeds. MotoGP is still going to be the fastest two-wheel racing series. We want MotoGP and superbikes to win, Villegas said at the French GP. Stock bikes that would be changed were planned. We changed the rules for superbikes 2 years ago. We want to keep MotoGP and superbikes separate, but some things will happen soon. The WSBK and MotoGP races take place on 7 tracks. The best way to compare the 2 racing events in similar conditions is to do them both at these tracks. In practice and races, MotoGP bikes have usually been faster than WSBK bikes around the track. MotoGP bikes have better technology and speed features because Grand Prix racing is more difficult. MotoGP always has faster lap times than WSBK on these shared tracks, even though WSBK uses different layouts and tyre types. MotoGP lap times are faster because the bikes are more efficient, have more power, and have better tyres. WSBK is fierce, but the bikes have to be built the same way as regular bikes, which slows down lap times. MotoGP bikes have always been faster than WSBK bikes at Phillip Island, Barcelona, and Assen. This shows that the series are not performing the same. The speed difference between MotoGP and WSBK might not be closed even if the engine size is shrunk and the rules for aerodynamics are improved. FIM and Dorna Sports are planning MotoGP and WSBK, and they want MotoGP to stay the best class of motorbike racing. The planned changes to the WSBK rules will try to keep speeds in check and make the 2 categories more clear. These changes to the WSBK rules will focus on engine performance and streamlining to make sure that WSBK bikes don't perform better than MotoGP bikes. MotoGP should stay the fastest and most high-tech motorcycle racing series in the world, and WSBK should be exciting and challenging. MotoGP and WSBK are both trying to find a good mix between speed and safety. Sports are dedicated to new ideas and progress. Fans and other people will be interested in the 2027 rules because they will change racing. By setting MotoGP apart from WSBK, a clear hierarchy would make the series more fun and help it stay the best motorbike racing series. This plan keeps MotoGP fair and fun, and it makes sure that sport improvements make their way onto regular bikes, which is good for riders.